Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Howdy y'all, this is red.olaughlin. We're on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And this is Holy Week, Easter Sunday coming up. And I'm doing something that I have never done before on the show. Most of the time I talk about health and wellness. I go into a lot of details on various aspects of longevity, age-related diseases. Occasionally, I might talk about some business aspect, talk about writing. But I wrote a book last year, in fact, just about a year from now. I wrote a book called Heaven, the Final Destination. And essentially, it was my research and development of how do I get to heaven bypassing purgatory. So let me kind of introduce this thing before I get to my slideshow today. Back, I guess, pre-Vietnam, post-World War II, totally different world in the United States. Everything was pretty much set up that it was the family, the focus. And when you start looking at what has changed over time, about 62%, I think is the last stat I saw, of people in the United States claimed to be Christian. And about 1/3 of that Christian group is Catholic. So about 20% of that 60-some percent. But even within that 20%, 1/3 of that actually makes some level to get to Mass on a Sunday. In fact, over 55%, I think, of the United States Americans don't even go to church anymore. It's just one of those things that has changed. So let me go ahead and start my presentation here today. We're talking about how Catholics can bypass purgatory and get to heaven. Well, my focus, and I'm going to add it in my disclaimer now, but I'm going to add it again later. Just because I say this, there's no guarantee because I don't know. But based on everything I've been able to research, I think there's pretty good alignment with the theology of the church. Now, the church is run by men. Lots of things can occur. I think the best advice my dad ever gave me in my life was don't confuse the church with the administration. I was probably in my 40s and I was having some issues with the administration. So once he said that, they're people, they have their foibles, they have a lot of issues, and that was fine. But anyway, so let's get back to our Talking Head show today. We're live streaming on Amazon Fire, Zizzle TV, 360, E360 TV, YouTube, a couple of channels there, Android TV, Apple TV, social media. I have simulcasts on my 2 social media Facebook channels, and there's more. We have podcasts that go out sometimes after the show. But my presentations are for awareness and education. So from this particular perspective, we're looking at religious health today more than anything else. As an author, I've written 8 books. There are 6 there. There's a couple that are one no longer in publication and another one that is unavailable there. But anyway, there are 6 of them. red@red.olaughlin.com or red.olaughlin@gmail.com are 2 easy ways to reach me. But if you want to contact me, another way is just go to my website, red.olaughlin.com. It's RED, color, Olaughlin, OLAUGHLIN, red.olaughlin.com. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships, treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms. I speak on this, I write on this, I have books on it, number of things I do. But I also help other people get their books published. I've gotten over 40 other authors get their books done over time. For us today, you can find the live shows on YouTube, USA Global TV, go to streams, and I think on the archives, it's really playlists rather than archives, but I have an archive portion of my website that covers nearly every show we've done here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. A little bit about me. I'm a researcher. I've never been in the medical or pharmaceutical fields, but for today's presentation, which is spiritual health, it's just one of those things that in a normal environment, I would be talking about health. Today is a special one, and I thought it was apropos because it is Holy Week. My first degree is chemistry. I have 5 total academic degrees, a whole bunch of professional certifications, 31 years in the Navy, retired as a captain, been to 61 countries. My focus in what I do is to find cause and effect relationships. This is what I did in industry and my commercial life after I got out of the military. If you can find out what caused something to happen, you can treat that cause. You're not treating the symptoms, and you can probably make some success out of that event. In July, I'll be married 57 years. We have a couple kids, 3 grandkids, and 1 great-grandson right now. Best-selling author, 8 books, independent publisher, distinguished Toastmaster. As a writer, I've published in LinkedIn over 1,000 original content articles, and the publication today is for educational purposes only. Last year, 2024, on the USA Global TV and Radio Network for the show The Wise Ones, I was the number 2 and number 6 host for that year. So today we're talking about Catholics avoiding purgatory and going to heaven. And so my book is shown there. In Catholicism, we believe that there's a purgatory, and I can go into the theoretical or theological, I guess is probably a better word, reasons for that. But for people that I'm addressing primarily today, purgatory is a known word. It's something that's there. They say, well, it's not in the Bible. As one of the Father Mark Beard passed away about a year or so ago. He used to say on his video, says, purgatory is an English word. Of course, you're not going to find it in ancient Greek in the Bible, but she says you're not going to find Trinity, you're not going to find incarnation, you're not going to find a lot of other things that we believe in today. But purgatory, there's enough references to it in the Bible, maybe as much as a half a dozen, but at least 3 or 4. But I believe in purgatory. It's where the soul is going to go before it ends up in heaven. I was what they consider to be a cradle Catholic. I'm the oldest of 9 kids. My parents were very devout Catholics. And I decided a little over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, to write a book on this topic. It's something that's, I want to know more, but I just didn't quite know what to do. And so I did some research. I need to share this with other people. So I used my research abilities in the non-business health and wellness. So if I wanted to rewrite that, I say, I did my research for spiritual health and wellness. So what does the Catholic Church say about going? They don't. They advocate a lot of things, but they don't specifically tell you up front, black and white guarantee, this is the way to bypass purgatory and go to heaven. So let's explore the options that we know and are available if you research them deep enough. Use the same cause and effect relationships of why. Well, why is that? Okay, tell me why that happened. If that happened, why did that happen? And you go down about 7 levels of why in order to find a root cause. Well, I use the Dewey Reams Bible. A lot of people don't like that one because it's a difficult one to read. Catholic history, a lot of it there you can find on Google, you can find on YouTube, find a lot of books. So I use that. Catholic doctrine, sacred tradition, sacred scripture. I think it's called the magisterium. And there's a lot of divine communications, and I think that's a very valid portion of this whole thing. Again, a disclaimer, just because I'm telling you this today doesn't give you any guarantee, but I think it means a whole lot more than never even knowing it to begin with. And that's the process of this show today, education and awareness. So from an awareness perspective, if you're a Catholic, these are things that you may never have been told of before. So, I've been to many, many retreats. I enjoy them. It's a chance to kind of break away from the everyday and focus on some aspect of my spiritual health. Well, I went to one, and it was during the pandemic, very beginning of the pandemic. And one of the first questions, I think it's Father Larry Richards asked, he says, "You know anybody in heaven?" I actually made it to heaven. And that was literally almost the first question out of his mouth, and silence in the church. And it really piqued my curiosity because he did go ahead and explain a little bit about last rites, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But what does the church say on getting to heaven? Okay, well, I think it's pretty good. You know, the basic answers: repent, have faith, be baptized, and you live a good life. You obey the commandments, and you participate in the sacraments. And yeah, you probably stand a better than 50-50 chance of making it to heaven. And I think that's a pretty good deal. But there is an intermediary stop called purgatory that Catholics believe in. And in this intermediary stop, it's a place where some residual temporal punishment due to sin is cleansed, and then you are entering into heaven. So at death, your soul leaves your body, as I understand it, and you stand in judgment, literally, instantly. And you're going to go to heaven, hell, or purgatory. One of those three await. So that is the first part of, okay, I'm dead. Well, what can I do to facilitate avoiding hell? That's obviously a major concern. But okay, fine, I can make it to heaven, but I really don't want to spend much time in purgatory if I can avoid it. Why? I would prefer not to. I'd rather live my life on earth a little bit better than not. So they tell you in Matthew, and this is the only reference I'm going to give you into the Bible, 7:7, ask and receive. I think we've all heard that before. If you don't ask, you're not going to receive anything. So are you, in your daily prayers, are you asking, pray for a happy and a holy death to gain heaven without purgatory? Is that something that you can easily be asking for on a daily basis, or even you doing daily prayers? I don't know. But I think if you're asking, it's something you're expecting, it's something that's going to change your mindset a little bit, and it absolutely doesn't hurt. Okay. But we do know that the sacrament of baptism, if you were to be baptized and died immediately, the teaching of the church is you're in heaven. There's no purgatory, because baptism eliminates all previous sin and any stain associated with it. Okay. So there's this thing called the last rites. And Father Larry Richards was saying, you administer the last rites to somebody, there's a certain process you go through with reconciliation, confession for those who are not familiar with that term, Holy Communion, a couple of little things, but the last rites gives you what's called an apostolic pardon. It grants you a plenary indulgence. I'm talking about plenary indulgence very quickly. But this is a little bit different because it's an apostolic pardon. The actual pardon is similar, almost identical to that of baptism, that it wipes out all traces, all stain of sin, and any associated punishment that has to be associated with it. So if you're Catholic, make sure that your family knows you want last rites, no matter what. Just put it in your will. Do something that everybody knows that when it comes that time, time for bring the priest in. Let's go do last rites. So there's another one that's very similar to the apostolic pardon, and this is one that was created not long ago. And it's called Divine Mercy Sunday, and it's the Sunday after Easter. It's very similar to the apostolic pardon, what they call equal to baptism. It requires confession and Holy Communion. And usually your plenary indulgences, it's 20 days before, 20 days after a confession gives you a little bit of time rather than, okay, I went to confession on Friday, I need to go to confession again on Saturday. Not that you have that accumulated that much sin, but the confession really does have some extenuating back in time and forward in time with the graces that gives you. But it's a part of the process with the Divine Mercy Sunday is renewal of your baptismal graces, basically a reset of your spiritual meters. A few years ago, it was fairly often mentioned in church, these things and the value of Divine Mercy Sunday. But Pope John Paul II was the one that created it, and he actually died on Divine Mercy Sunday. But nowadays, I'm seeing it's just not mentioned very often as far as what are the benefits of the apostolic pardon associated with doing the processes associated with getting it at Divine Mercy Sunday. Plenary indulgence, use that term. We have a temporary indulgence. And, if I say a particular saying, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, the church applied a number of days, say 300 days, just to pick a number. It could be 3 years, could be 7 years, could be a number of things. But way back when, for centuries, there was some level of, if I do an indulgence of saying this, there would be some remission of my total time in purgatory. So if I said this 10 times a day, 10 times 300 is 3,000, I would end up with 3,000 less days in purgatory in advance by doing this. So you have a temporary indulgence, a partial indulgence, what it's called. But then you have the plenary indulgence. And plenary is a little bit more than the other one. In this particular case, you have to do some function of a list of things. One of the things we do on a daily basis is, say, a family rosary. Well, that's one that gives you a plenary indulgence. There are a number of them, look it up, and okay, you can do that, you can do this, you can do this. There are a number of things there that allow you as a Catholic to earn a plenary indulgence. The plenary indulgence fully removes the temporal punishment of sin. If you might have this on another slow, but the typically way it was explained to a 5 to 10 year old was, you're outside, you're playing baseball, you hit a ball, it breaks a window in the neighbor's house. Okay. The neighbor says, you're forgiven, no problem, I understand your kids. Well, you're forgiven. You go to confession and be forgiven. But somebody has to pay for the broken window and the labor and everything to make that new again. That's that temporal punishment of the sin. Well, in the plenary indulgence, that temporal punishment, the broken glass, the replacement glass, the labor, all the rest of that stuff, to make it whole again, is what you're literally doing in purgatory. Is your soul is being punished for the temporal punishment of the sins that you've accumulated over time that were not forgiven by confession or plenary indulgences or whatever. But when you get a plenary indulgence, you can only apply it to the living yourself only, or any deceased person. And it's only once per day. Now, I can do a plenary indulgence in the morning, and if something happens to me, I can have an apostolic indulgence or that apostolic pardon later on that day, because it's literally two different things. But you have to say the Apostles' Creed, you have to go to confession, usually within a 20-day window before or after communion, and then there's certain prayers they say to the pontiff's intentions. So there's several things that when you get a plenary indulgence, you have to perform a certain act. You have to make sure your confession was in 20 days, or you're going to be going to confession in 20 days, that you go to Holy Communion, that you offer usually Hail Mary, Our Father, Glory be to the Pontiff's intentions. You say the Apostles' Creed because now you're basically reciting what your belief is in the Catholic Church. And then you can donate this plenary indulgence to a deceased member or give it to yourself. Now, one thing I didn't realize, and I just saw literally this week, was each line in the Apostles' Creed comes from an individual apostle. So if you're interested in finding out which line, which apostle chose to create the Apostles' Creed. This is probably back about the year 40, and the Blessed Virgin Mary was the one that coordinated this. But pretty interesting evolution of that particular prayer, and the fact that it was a predecessor to the Nicene Creed, which is a more definitive creed of what the Catholic Church believes in. Another way that is a closer way of saying, okay, do this and we can bypass purgatory. But 9 First Fridays, this is something that 9 First Fridays in a row, you go to Mass, you go to communion. It's for your intention is for reparation of sins. And the Lord granted what they call the grace of perseverance by doing this. In other words, you're not going to die in disgrace without receiving sacraments. Well, that implies right now some kind of relationship between my soul at death and my soul getting to heaven. So if I'm receiving sacraments, and one of the sacraments is the last rites, if I get that particular sacrament, okay, fine. I'm probably a very happy camper at that last instance of life. So 9 First Fridays, I've tried it several times. I've done it a couple times. It's difficult, not easy, too many distractions in life. But it's something that's there. And again, it implies a link between death and heaven without purgatory. Guaranteed? No. But probably more than likely. Okay, there's another one, 5 First Saturdays, and this requires a bit more. Mass, confession, communion, recital of a rosary, and reflection of the mysteries on the rosary. And it's usually for about 15 minutes. And the intention is to make reparations to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Not explicit in the research that I did that says you do the 5 First Saturdays, and you'll have the graces necessary to transition to heaven. You can get to heaven, but it doesn't really say anything about purgatory. But does it hurt? No. So I've done that one time. Don't ask me why, only once. It's just very difficult sometimes to get all my Saturdays put together. As I tell people, I have 6 Saturdays and a Sunday every week. And most of the time, I don't even know which Saturday it is, but it's just part of being retired. Okay, if I were to take my tie off, you would see that I'm wearing what's called a brown scapular. And this is a traditional promise. It goes back 1,000 years, probably, maybe more. But the original scapular was worn by a particular religious group. It kind of got expanded a little bit and then expanded greatly after that. But the teaching of the church was that the wearer of the brown scapular will not suffer eternal fire. So I say, hooray, I can at least know I'm not going to one of the 3 options immediately upon death. So if I can not suffer eternal fire or hell, then that to me is an exceptionally good deal for wearing a scapular. Again, not explicit, but helpful, and especially on that one option you have at death. I look at our physical life and our spiritual life very similar. When we're young, we're bulletproof, in our teenage 20s, even up to our 30s. And we do anything. We eat anything. We don't age. Everything lasts. But when we were 6, 7, 8 years old, our religious health was pretty strong. And all of a sudden I get into those teenage years, things start to wane a bit. I get into my 20s, and what didn't wane in my teenage years is probably gone. And it's not till you get older that all of a sudden, now I want to know, how can I avoid Alzheimer's? How can I avoid heart disease? I want to know how I can improve my health in my 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. But at the same time, as I start getting up there, I start saying, maybe I ought to be paying more attention to my spiritual health also. So I start saying, well, I'm bulletproof back here, and maybe my bulletproof as a spiritual life was really a decade earlier. But as I get older, a lot of things kind of go into the weeds, and then they come back. And this is just an observation over time. It's like if you see your parents, in their 50s, they're pretty good. 60s, they start to slow down. 70s, they're really slowing down a lot. But between 75 and 85, what I've seen, and it's just not only my parents, but many of the people, all of a sudden you catch something or something happens to you, and you might be right here on your health, and then all of a sudden you're down a step, and you never quite get back up to here. So you're here, something else happened, something else happened. You never get back to where you were. So your level of immunity just can't take you to the where you were, and so you keep sinking, sinking, sinking. And if you end up with something like Alzheimer's or cardiovascular disease or some other age-related issue, it's just really hard to overcome it because we can't. So all of a sudden our mind's saying, well, maybe I need to say the rosary more often. Maybe I need to go to church. Maybe I need to do this. Because all of a sudden now we have the time to start seeing things we didn't see earlier. Personal observation. Another one. This one I think is probably one of the more explicit ones. The Seven Sorrows of Mary, Mother of God. A couple promises were made by doing the Seven Sorrows Chaplet and Rosary. And that is Mary's going to be present at your death and Jesus will take you directly to heaven. That's pretty explicit. And if the mother of Jesus says, this is what we promise, then it's much more. So, like say, if you're a mom and you promise your kid you're going to take them out for ice cream after they do something or they're good, there's a parental promise. You got your boss telling you, I'm going to promise you a raise or what. We have different levels of promises, but when you have a promise at this level of spirituality, I would tend to say it holds a lot of water. I really believe so. So that's something to look at. Seven Sorrows Chaplet or Seven Sorrows Rosary, dedicated to the Seven Sorrows, and the two promises. Mary's going to be present at your death, and Jesus will take you to heaven. Okay, that says, not taking you to purgatory, taking you to heaven. One of my favorite people, Saint Bridget of Sweden. Now, there's a Saint Bridget of Ireland that some people know about. Saint Bridget of Ireland actually changed water into beer. There's, I think, another saint that did the same thing. But Saint Bridget of Sweden had many, many, many conversations with Jesus. And in the process of these conversations, two things came out of it. 15 prayers daily for 1 year. And these take a little bit of time, maybe 15, 20 minutes. My wife and I did this 10 years ago. We're doing it again now. But there's a checklist of 15, 20 things that you do this, and this is our explicit, Jesus' promise to Saint Bridget. You do this, and this is what happens. Boom, 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 boom. But it includes a lot of issues with your lineage. So look up Saint Bridget of Sweden, 15 prayers, and you'll be amazed that if you do this every day for a year, there's some very, very, very explicit promises with regard to your eternal life. But there's another one. It's much simpler, about 5 minutes or less. And it says 7 prayers daily for 12 years. 12 years is a long time. I'm 78 now, so that means I'll be 90. But the caveat is, if I start it now and I die in 2 years, I haven't made my 12 years. But the mere fact that I've kept it up with the intention of doing 12 years, then that's a guarantee for me based on the research that I've done. And in this particular case, there's a very explicit promise of heaven and even more explicit exemption of purgatory. Not only do you enter heaven as if you had been martyred. So you're at a different level in heaven than somebody who did not do this particular 7 prayers daily for 12 years. So that's one that is, it's a little difficult, but once you get in the habit of doing it, it's not a difficult habit to maintain. Getting toward the end here. Every little bit helps. If you're going to church, the third of you who go to church on a regular basis, go to Mass, offer your Mass up for the souls in purgatory. I started doing a lot of research recently on what happens in purgatory, what can they do for you, what can we do for them. A lot of good information out there. There's one particular one with 2 nuns that used to be in the same nunnery, not monastery, I guess nunnery for right now. And one of them had conversations with a nun in purgatory, and lots of questions were answered over time. And it's just, okay, that's pretty interesting. A lot of saints, not a lot, more than a couple saints have had the pleasure of actually visiting purgatory and reporting back on what they see. Lots of information out there. So if you're interested, spend some time, look it up. The souls in purgatory are there at your disposal. They can pray for you, but they can't pray for themselves. So they're dependent on you to get them out of heaven, out of purgatory. They know they're going to heaven. They bypassed hell, but it's one of those things that they got to put the time in. Reconciliation, a lot of powerful graces associated with confession, adoration, again, time to reflect, time for guidance, a lot of daily prayers, and a lot more value when they're done with the family. And I'm not sure I have another one after this. I think this is probably the last slide. Three things that I thought were interesting in my research. Some things that I was never told in grade school way back when, never told as part of any retreat. But in the process of trying to find information with regard to how can I get to heaven bypassing purgatory, I found a couple significant miracles in recent decades, particularly at the end of World War II. An atom bomb was dropped on top of Hiroshima, another one dropped on top of Nagasaki. Well, in Hiroshima, literally hundreds of yards from dead center, there was a Jesuit church. That morning, there were 6 or 7 Jesuits praying the rosary when the bomb was dropped. Every one of them survived. Every one of them had no problems with eyesight, no problems with hearing, never had a single skin issue with radiation poisoning. They were able to help tons of people and never acquired radiation sickness from being out in the city after the bomb dropped. I think the oldest one lived about 40 years after that particular bombing. Same thing happened in Nagasaki. I think they were Franciscan, but about a half a dozen people survived, never had any health issues, never had any problems with helping the locals put things back together, and lived the rest of their lives. Here you are, a couple 300, 400 yards from dead center on an atomic bomb, and you're walking around as if nothing happened. And somebody had to be looking out for someone. Yeah, the church was, the windows were blown out, doors missing, all sorts of stuff, a lot of damage, but the people survived. How did that happen? Well, now you're starting to get into miracles. And so I actually knew this one before, but Yusef Anton Maklov, he's also known as Saint Charbel. And he's a Lebanese monk, no longer with us, but he's been accredited with officially 33,000 plus miracles. Some researchers say 80,000. One video I looked at saying they are so backlogged on testimonial evidence of miracles that they're processing 5,000 a month and they can't keep up. So you have Saint Charbel, who people pray to for health, for other reasons, don't even have to be physically present in Lebanon in order to gain the miracle that he has. So if I'm looking at something to substantiate, there are spiritual health. I have promises from the spiritual leadership, from God, from Mary, from Jesus, that I want to get to heaven. I want to bypass purgatory. Well, like I say, I wrote a book, and the book gives you all the references that I have, talks about everything I did, a lot more detail than I did today, gives you my perspective on it. And I think it's something that, as a Catholic, we just don't get enough of this kind of education. Certainly no awareness of it whatsoever, and that's one of the easiest things to do. Had the priest not asked the audience in our church, do you know anybody who actually made it to heaven? Well, you kind of hope you do, but until he says, well, if your parent, if your sister, whatever, had last rites, the church says this sacrament by the apostolic pardon will gain them entry into heaven directly, no purgatory involved. And I said, I need to do some more research. So that's the genesis of this particular topic, and I hope you enjoy it. Next week we'll be back with our regular health and wellness thing, but today we're looking at religious health, and I think that's part of a major balance in your life with your emotion, your mental, your physical, and your spiritual life. So you all have a great time, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care now. Bye.
Meet Red O'Laughlin, TV show host, presenter, and author.
Howdy all, Red O'Laughlin here. I'm a TV host on the USA Global TV and Radio Network.
Red has 3 weekly shows every Thursday.
I've been a TV host now with USA Global probably maybe just a little over 3 years. Probably, I know for sure 250, 300 shows.
Join Red on the Corner Bookstore.
The Corner Bookstore is one where we talk to authors, publicists, publishers, editors, cover designers, anybody associated with the writing and authoring book production business. You have somebody in that area, I can help you with regard to getting your book done, getting it published, working with you on a cover. A lot of things I can help people with, and I have probably maybe published over 40 books for people so far.
Join Red on The Wise Ones.
On the Wise Ones, I'm looking for entrepreneurs, business owners, people who have wisdom, lessons learned over time that they can share with others. So please go to usaglobaltv.com, sign up, and join me there.
Book your session on usaglobaltv.com. Join Red on Talking Heads.
On Talking Heads, I take my experience. I fell in love with chemistry many years ago, got a degree in it, got an invitation to Vietnam, never practiced chemistry per se, but I did get a chance when my wife was going through chemo to get back into the chemical end of things. I started looking for cause and effect relationships. I had been working at a company doing cause and effect analysis on failures in the field on various products that we made. So I said, why not look at the cellular structure in the body? The chemicals are chemicals. They do certain things. So I take my knowledge of chemistry and research. I write about it. I speak about it. I have over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, most of them dealing with some aspect of health or wellness. I speak on that topic quite often, and the Talking Head show is one that I concentrate my knowledge of health and wellness on in order to help people.
Red is a distinguished Toastmaster.
As a distinguished Toastmaster, I help people get their speeches developed. The presentation is something that I critique all the time with Toastmasters. It's one of those skills that I have. I can easily help you on that one. So from a position of writing, publishing, book coach, speaking, and being a keynote speaker at an event or virtually, depending on how things work out. But those are the things that I can help people with, and I have 3 shows every week here on the USA Global TV and Network, and please join me when you can. Appreciate it. Bye now.
Here are some of the books that Red has written and published. Contact Red at red.olaughlin.com.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/usaglobaltv. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.